So welcome to Reloved Guitars. This is Sam and I've got 3 guitars to do this week before I go on my honeymoon. 3 more guitars I should say, and I'd like to introduce you first of all to, well, they're all belonging to Les. So Les came down from Wiltshire today, and Les and his wife June came down and brought 3 guitars, dropped them off, and we'll come back again, pick them up on Friday. So I've got a full-on job to set these up. 2 of them are Yamaha Pacificas. One is this, I don't know which one is this. This is the Pacifica 012, yeah. And the other one is a 12H or something. I don't know, it's a nicer one. And then on top of that, he's got a Fender Malibu, a little cute acoustic in the mix. So I'm going to work on all 3 of these. Now this first one is interesting in that it's well, it's a second-hand guitar, and I know that Les got a great deal on it. So the Pacifica is a really good starter guitar. This one here is in very good condition. It's a sort of slightly metallic red, and comes with tremolo and slightly budget tuners, which is the mark of a budget guitar, really, I guess. But despite that, it's it's a rock solid guitar and plays really well. Now, one of the things that Les wanted me to do was to set this tremolo up and also make it work, because I think, like a lot of people, Les has heard or experienced that the trem will often cause the guitar to go out of tune. So a lot of people are wary of the tremolo arm and don't want anything to do with it. So my experience has shown me that the tremolo arm itself actually can be very, very stable. It's not the tremolo that's the problem, it's the other aspects on the guitar that affect the tuning, particularly the amount of slack left in the strings and also the nut slots, which I can hear are pinging on this guitar, so they're not perfect. Now what I did with this guitar before I came on to switch the camera on is I set the tremolo up in floating mode quite precisely, and I used a method which is on YouTube, put forward by an Italian musician and luthier whose name is Galeazzo Frudua, whatever. Anyway, and he, apart from being an incredibly talented singer, songwriter, guitarist and so on, he's also come up, or has defined, a method of setting these tremolos up, which is, well, these vibrato units, which is really, really straightforward and simple. Now, on the plus side,
Sam,
yeah,
what went in you know where the wall is, and the
yeah,
big bush there?
yep.
I went in there, and you know your like grabbing thing?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to use that quickly to try and get it?
Yeah, let me go and find the grabbing thing, hold on. Right, children and balls. Anyway, yeah, so Frudua has this method that he explains in a couple of videos how to set this up, and actually it's a brilliant and elegant way of doing things, and it works perfectly. The downside of it is that, and this is no criticism of him, it's just the way it is, it doesn't leave anybody knowing it doesn't leave you knowing how it works. If you follow the instructions, you just do it and it works, but it doesn't help people make sense of it, and you don't come away any wiser than when you went in. So that's one thing about it, but I do recommend if you want to set them up yourself, go and see his stuff, because this is set up using that method and takes about 5 minutes. And it's got full range, or the correct range of pull backwards and an infinite range forward. Now the reason I did it off camera is another little sort of aspect of it, and that is I didn't feel entirely confident sort of showing his method, and I tried to kind of wonder why that was, and I suppose it's mainly because, you know, he's sort of spent a lot of time kind of I don't know, perfecting it. He's come up with it, and you know, he makes a thing about showing it and getting support and sponsorship or donations or whatever, and he has some advertising and so on. So I just didn't feel like it's my place to be repeating the same method and showing you how to do it when he does it, and I guess makes a living from it. So suffice to say, it's done. I do recommend you go to his videos on YouTube, search for Frudua, F-R-U-D-U-A 2-point tremolo, and you'll find it. Okay, so anyway, this is already set up to play, and having set it up, I've also then set the action with this in position. The way you set the floating tremolo changes the action here. So if you're going to do a setup, you do need, and you intend to have a floating tremolo, you need to make sure that's set up first, and then the action's where you want it to be. So just looking at this thing, it's got pretty high action down here. I'd say it's nearly 1 millimetre down at this end, the nut end, and it was very high here. It was about 3 millimetres. I've set it now at about 1.5, and so, you know, some of the notes are a little bit choked out. So this this guitar feels and sounds straight away like it's going to need some fret leveling, which is not surprising. It's not in as good shape as the other guitar. Excuse me. I've been doing the thing for it on this old Antoria, masquerading as a Hofner. It isn't. It's another Antoria archtop, and I've just been literally sanding this flat and recutting the fret slots prior to refretting it. Not now, but anyway, so as a result, there's a lot of rosewood floating around in the air to be breathed in. Okay, so just let's go back to the beginning on this thing. I'm just going to double check the action. Now, having set the tremolo the way I want it, if I want to change the action now, which I don't really, this is 1.5 and 1.1, so that's pretty good, but if I wanted to, I could still change the action by using these end two here and raising them, because part of the process of setting a floating tremolo on this using the Frudua method is to treat the outer two of these screws as the, I feel like the twin point fixtures on a 2-point tremolo. Anyway, it's a bit complex, but the action's fine. I'm just going to now check the second of 3 parts of the action that I set before I do any fret leveling, and it's, well, in this case it's tremolo setting, then it's bridge action, sorry, last fret action. Now I'm going to check neck relief, make sure that's right, and then I'm going to do the nut slots, and then once those 3 are done then I can do fret leveling. So at the moment, if I capo the first fret and have a look, we have quite a lot of relief in this neck. It's quite high actually, so I would look to take a bit of that out, and for that, to that end, I'm going to need to remove, I'm a bit short on screwdrivers, I left them somewhere. I'm going to need to remove the truss rod cover up here, not that way I won't, and then we'll stick that to one side. Now this is, I haven't got a magnetic thing now, this is a little bit annoying. That's it, a good way of pulling a reluctant screw out. And then we're going to pull out this little cover here, if we can. Not the easiest to get out at any point, but it's especially when you've got the strings on, but that's okay. Now I'm going to get the right key for this, and I'm going to go with some clockwise movement. Now this is not the right key, is it? No, I'm going to go with a bit of clockwise movement, because if there's too much relief in it, I want to stiffen up the truss rod. Now I'm missing the Allen key that I need for that part of it. Yeah, I'm going to tighten it up, try and just pull out some of the... Okay, is this going to fit this, or is it the wrong size? It's the wrong size. Okay, that works. So I'll tighten that up clockwise, and I'll just have another look as it takes effect. It's still pretty high. Some truss rod adjustments are quicker than others, and it's hard to know how your neck's going to react, so it's a matter of doing it, waiting a little bit, having a look, and being just prepared to go backwards on it if you need to. Maybe a little less, tiny bit less, but not a hell of a lot. So now I'm going to, one of the briefs for all of these three guitars for Les is that Les has taken up the guitar for the first time, aged 68, and that's a fantastic thing. It's a great thing to do. But it means he wants a guitar, or guitars, that are as light as possible to play, to facilitate his learning. This is I don't know if it might have a two-way truss rod in this thing actually. It feels like it's passing a middle point, but that's coming down. Yeah, so Les is taking it up for the first time, aged 68, and there we go. I think it's going to start biting now in the other direction. Yeah, so he wants guitars that are really light and easy to play, and there we go. And one of the things that that's probably a little bit too flat now. So one of the things that these have is quite heavy strings on, so I think it would be probably in his interest if we took the took the 10s off and replaced them with 9s. So in every sense we're going to make this light and easy to play by reducing the action here. We've taken the action down here. I'm going to put 9s on, and then it's going to be a very light action indeed. While he was here, Les was able to try out a couple of mine which were right exactly to his preference, so we're going for that kind of action. See that? Now, there's proof, if proof be needed, that this is a tremolo that you can abuse if you wish, and oh god, there's rosewood everywhere. You can abuse this tremolo and it's going to stay in tune. So I'll just give you a little demo of how stable it is. And this is without being completely confident, by the way, that the slack is all out of these strings. I've taken a fair bit of it out, but I can't be sure there isn't some still left in there, in which case it will go out of tune. But assuming, as we will when I put the next set of strings on, assuming that all the slack is taken out, then There's no reason why this guitar shouldn't stay perfectly in tune, reliably in tune, whilst using the tremolo to quite extreme levels. Nicely tuned guitar. Now let's play the tremolo. Proof that floating tremolo on a Strat style guitar can be completely dependable tuning wise. The only downside about this one is that I don't know if this is not the correct arm for this. It's a little bit loose. I might try some of my other ones that might be a little bit better fit, because it's a shame that when you're doing the backwards and forwards on a nice, having gone to all the trouble to get this tremolo set beautifully well, it's a real shame to have this kind of this kind of slack play in here. It just doesn't feel like nice. One of the great things about the Brian May signature guitar that I've got is that the tremolo arm is a perfect fit, and it's very positive and immediate, so that when you use it there's no slack or you know, slap, if you like. Which is a really nice thing. So down here, I think I've got my little pile of arms. Now I have no idea if this will fit, but let's just have a see. And if it is a better fit, ooh, I think this is a much better fit. If this is a better fit, then we have a positive one. There you go. That's yours. I'll bin this. Put it in the thing. This is a lovely fit. And there's no rattle. Perfect. Now, if it's swinging loose, it has a little bit of movement, but providing it's kind of up to that, you know, it's in the sort of stiff mode. If there is a slight detuning, it's because of the nut slots on here, nothing else. They're not done yet, and they're not giving properly. They're pinging. So that's the only hindrance to the tuning. But when we get that done and put some new strings on, it's going to be stable as anything. So there we go. That's a nice start to this one. So right away, I'm confident that this one's going to come out really well. Let's get cracking. So really, for this point onwards, I can take this arm off and just put it to one side for a minute, because I won't need it for the rest of this process. And so this is a matter of that we've got the relief good, right, and now it's a case of getting these slots correct. Now I'm going to base the slots that I use on, I'm going to use a set of 9s, I think, if I can find them. I'm going to use a set of 9s, but I'm going to take my measurements from a set of 10s probably. Just I like them to be roomy, have a bit more space than not. So it's always a good idea to go more than less. Now what I don't know at the moment with this guitar is what the quality of the nut is. It looks pretty well made, but for me it all comes down to the material, and that makes the real difference in how it cuts and how accurately I'm able to do it. Okay, so I don't need to refer to this. We're starting with the 9, 11, 16, so I want to go a fair bit over for each of these to give myself room. So I'm going to go 13, 16, something. Let's see what I've got. 13, 11. Well, technically somebody would say 11, 13 actually. 11, 13, 17 is probably, I know that basically the ones I've got add up to that. Is this a newer one? 13, that's alright. What am I looking for? I'm looking for 17. 17 is only fractionally above the actual gauge, so I need to wiggle that a bit. 17, I don't have any 18s or 19s, that's the thing. 24, so I'm going to go for 26. 32, I'm going to go 36, and a 42, I'm going to go 46. So there's my set, and these may, because they're quite close to the gauge, these may require a little bit of sandpapering to get them exactly right. So get into the close-up-ish mode. What I do, and Les, you'll have seen this a few times anyway, and so it won't be any surprise, but I go for my fairly dependable 0.3 and I just have a quick look. So most of that is above 0.3. So I'm going to start with the D. I'm going to work outwards from the D, and I'm going to just go for basically 0.3 on all of these. Or if I fancied making it really light, in fact I will do it, because the guitar that Les has borrowed for a couple of days while I'm doing these is set to 0.25, so it's very, very light indeed. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to work to a 0.25. Now this is quite a brittle sort of plastic, which is good. It's fairly workable. So I'm just cutting with a backwards tilt until I reach the basically the feeler gauge stops and starts to just buzz against the string, meaning there's no more clear space under there. It's almost there. It's just a whisker away. So just slightest little bit more and we'll be there. A tiny bit more. So it really is always a matter of just slowly, that'll do, slowly and patiently. So that's that one done. You can see it's nice and low compared to the G next to it. And it's actually the G, the B, and the G and the B particularly, that if they are high, yeah, this is, I forgot this bit, this is quite tricky actually. It doesn't have to be at pitch, it needs to be under enough tension to make sure the string sits deep in the slot. That's the main bit, so just make sure it's under, if you've got a floating tremolo vibrato, make sure it's under tension enough to pull the string into the slot. Okay, this is a big gap. I mean, just out of interest, I think that's probably, let's see what that actually is. 0.5 and a 0.4. See if we can make that play. No, so it's about 0.7 then. 0.75, let's see. Yeah, so 0.7 I'd say, which is quite a way over what I'd like. In fact, it's about 0.5 millimetre more than I want. So this one's got a fair bit of cutting to do. It's a nice solid plastic material. I don't know if it's a graphite compound. I'm not really that able to tell just by looking, but all I know is that it's behaving quite like bone behaves when you cut it, that's all I care about, that it's dependable and it cuts evenly and smoothly. Some plastics just are awful, really. Okay, I'm on the borderline of that one, so I stop there. And then just bring in the bottom E. Okay, this one isn't far off to begin with, quite close. So a little bit of work here and not much at all. I'm going to stop right there, I think. Yeah, that's good. And having done those, I'm now going to drop off the top 3 and work outwards from the G. And again, that's a lot of space there. So the G, the 17, is only a fraction bigger than the actual gauge of the string, so it's the chance of the risk here of this being a little bit tight. So I'm going to try and wiggle around a bit as I cut this one. If there was something like, what are we looking at, 16? There isn't an 18. The next one is about 20 something, which is probably a bit too much, but I'm just trying to make it as loose as possible. We're just about there actually on the mark. A little bit more. Almost there. You can see you can get to be very good at judging the shadow or the reflection of the string over the fret, and you can actually get to see, you can judge pretty accurately actually how high these are. Okay, that'll do that. And then we go to 13, which is a couple of blips higher. But the actual, there's loads of room, so I've said many times whilst doing this, the small amount of work or a small amount of adjustment here can make a huge difference to how it plays. It's hard to describe just how big an impact that can have. It's disproportionate to the that's spot on, disproportionate to the small amount of adjustment. But a combination of setting both ends of this correct and leveling the frets to make the guitar play nicely at that chosen action just makes the whole thing play and feel incredibly light to the touch. You know, we're talking, if I lower some of these strings, the action, if I lower the action by at most ½ millimeter, you know, you think about what that actually is as a physical size. It's almost nothing. It's minuscule, but it makes a substantial difference to the feel of the guitar. That's what's enjoyable about it. It's very precise. And very precise and I suppose dramatic improvement, which is what I like about this process. Now we're dead on there. In fact, we could even be said a whisker too far down, but that's fine. So I pick this up immediately and play it. Okay. Still got some stretch to come out of here, but so I'm not looking for now at this point is having lowered the action, having lowered it at both ends, I'm now looking to see how let me just see, is that still a bit high there? Looking to see, yeah, it is a bit high. Always slightly wimp out at the lower end. I don't know why. Let's just go back to two strings. Yeah, I'm now need to play it through to see what we've got in the way of if we've got any choked notes or anything that doesn't play. Because really I'm now looking for, the question is, do I need to fret level, or is this, are the frets in good enough condition to leave as is? Okay, that's good. Yeah, do we leave as is or do we fret level? And it's it's quite a big, difference in time and energy if it has to be leveled. So I'm just going to play it and see if I find any buzzing notes or choked notes. Okay, I think that's better. Tiny little adjustments there, you can see, but just making it as light as it can be. Doing this sort of relative harmonic tuning on this guitar when you've got a floating tremolo on is not ideal, it's a bit difficult. See how they've changed. Okay, so boring sort of run through of all the notes. The only thing that if you're going to use a floating tremolo you have to get used to is when you bend a note, watch what happens to the bridge. It comes up in sympathy, which means the other notes become slightly flat. Well, I'm quite impressed with this. It's not bad at all. It has obviously now got some relief in the neck, a little bit. Not an awful lot, but enough. And the question is, I can see it. The question is, does it need fret leveling? And I don't think there are any major high frets. It's slightly curved, so it's not a massively good indicator, but it's probably better to do this kind of check on an absolute flat surface. But even with a tiny bit of relief, you will often still pick up the uneven frets. This is pretty accurate. A little tiny bit of movement there, but yeah, not bad. Well, it's the second one in 2 days I've had like this. It's sort of borderline, and the question is, do I do it, or do I? There's a bit unevenness there. Oh yeah, and there. But it's surprisingly good. Yeah, there's a little bit. You can hear it rattling now. Well, come on, I'm here to make these as good as they can be. I have to keep reminding myself of that. So I'll do it. I'll do it. And it's going to be done with everything as is. So that means I'm going to do it with the bridge in that position, which is absolutely fine. I just need to. So it makes it a little bit harder to mark all the frets up with marker pen. I'm going to do it anyway. So like the guitar I did yesterday, this will require only a very light treatment, which is very good. So I'm just going to move these and give me a head start on these frets. So the process of fret leveling involves a couple of stages, 3 stages in fact. The first stage is to level the frets, and I'm going to do that using my tunable fret leveling file, and I'm going to level the frets with the neck curved as it currently is, and that's, for some people who have not thought about that as a way of doing it before, it can be quite a counterintuitive thing, and it certainly was for me when I first heard about it, but actually it's a very good, accurate and precise way of doing it for a number of reasons. I suppose the principal benefits are, first of all, it's more accurate because you are leveling the frets relative to each other with all the conditions at play that will be at play when the guitar is strung and ready to be played. So that makes it much more, it puts it into the actual shape it's going to be when you play it, and then you level the frets when they are in that playing condition, and so that when you restring the guitar and put it back into that condition, i.e. you load the strings, or load the neck with the string tension, it reverts the neck to the levelled state that you had it in when you levelled it, and it's more accurate than doing it with the neck off and passively flattened, which is, by the way, it's not criticism of that method. That method is infinitely more effective than not doing it at all. So many guitars have really uneven frets, and if you do the passive neck flattening method, you'll get a massive improvement in your guitar's playing and the ability to set a low action. So this method is just that, maybe I don't know, let's say 10% more accurate again on top of that. So if the passive flatten method is 90% accurate, let's call this 100% for argument's sake, which is why I like to do it. But the second reason that's probably more important, or as important, is that because it's done with the neck curved and the strings on, it means that I can stop as soon as I get it playing the way I want, and I don't have to keep on levelling to some notional or arbitrary state of flatness, which you kind of have to do if you're doing it with the neck off or passively flattened method. Okay, so first thing I do is I'm going to use these three little feet to map the curvature in the neck, and it's like a principle of physics or maths or something, that if you place these three little points along a curve, they will sit at whatever height the curve is. So these 3 points, if you imagine them as sample points on a graph, they are sampling the curve at those points. And if we put this adjustable curved tool on top of it, we can bend it until it matches those 3 points perfectly. And I can do that with a sort of matter of feel by placing this on top, and I can see when, as in the case now, this truss rod tool, which has got sandpaper on the bottom, the truss rod is straighter than the neck is, and so consequently it's touching on the two ends but it's missing the middle one. So all I have to do is tune this by turning the end until the curve in this truss rod is the same, and I can feel that. It's a matter of experience, but I can see the middle one move, and I can feel how the rod touches, whether it touches the middle first or the two together, and I can pretty accurately decide when I've mapped that curve, and I'm happy with that. So once I've done that, I drop off this first string, spread the strings apart down here, and using this tool just as it is, only under gravity because it's metal and it weighs a bit, but just using the power of gravity, I just run this truss rod up and down the frets along that track where the E string goes, and a bit to either side of it, obviously, because I don't just want to do the thin little strip, but I just run it up and down and let gravity do most of the work. Now the interesting thing now is I can just do it for a bit and then stop, and I'll take this off so you can see. I'll give it a close up, because this is a very good diagnostic thing. Now it's not perfect with the lighting, but let's see if we can make it out. Let's have a pointing thing. Okay, so looking along the whole length, first thing I can see is that it's cut frets all the way along straight away, which tells me a couple of things. First of all, it tells me I've mapped the curve exactly right. If it was too straight, it would be cutting only the ends, and if this rod was too bent, it would be cutting more in the middle. So it's pretty much accurate. It's missing a few up here, right? So it's got all of them along here, which is good, and it's missing a few here, so it tells me these are a bit lower. And then I can see where it's cutting more than others. So this fret here, 12th fret, is high, actually 11th, 12th and 13th, and I kind of knew that because I could hear that from those strings struggling a bit to play cleanly up there. So that's the benefit of this. This truss rod is now this adjustable or tunable fret leveling file is doing the work automatically. It is taking off by kind of basic simple physics. It's taking a little bit off all of them Oops, but it's taking more off the high ones, and it's telling us where the low ones are, and we have to kind of, if we've got low ones, we have to bring everything just down enough to meet the low ones, but if it's got high ones, we'll see them cutting the excess material straight off the top of those first. So it's really, really simple. It's not like once it's going, once you've done the calibration with this tool, it does the thing itself, which is brilliant and dependable. And so what I can do, once I've done a bit of leveling, I can then pick up the guitar, put the string back on, and that is very, very close to being spot on. I'll just do a tiny little bit more just to make sure. And this is a 400 grit paper, so it's taking such a small amount off. It's definitely cutting the frets, but it's doing it in a very delicate and sort of controlled, slow, light fashion. So you can see what it's doing. You kind of know when to stop, because you can keep testing it. And once we get where we want to go, I'll pretty much stop this and move on, and that looks good. I've touched just about all the frets, only a little bit. Now I always use the same setting for the first and second track, so I'll just go straight on with that one, and again do the same sort of thing. I think Morris has just come in. Okay, and again I'm sort of thinking diagnostically again here. I'm just letting the truss rod go up and down, mostly under gravity, and I'm just seeing where it's cutting and where it isn't. And interestingly, that the high parts of your frets don't map immediately across. So some of the ones that were high in one place, by the time you get to the middle of the guitar, may not be high as well. So you might be high at the edges and even in the middle. So again, having done a little bit with this, I'm just going to take the tiny weeny bit more there, but it's it's definitely a light leveling that's going on here. It's not this is, compared to some guitars, this is a very, very gentle approach. Some are so uneven that you really have to work away for quite some time to get it where you need it to be, actually to get the notes to play. And sometimes when you get the notes to play, you still have to work harder because they don't bend. They might play, but as soon as you bend them, they choke off. Okay, so having done the first two tracks, I'm now going to switch to calibrate the G track. And again, I go back to the rod and I put it back on, and I just check and see what's it doing. Is it touching these equally? And actually it still is, so it's a consistent relief across the neck. And I move the G out of the way, spread the strings there, and just do a very gentle gravity sort of based leveling, and just keeping an eye all the time as to what's happening, to see how it's cutting the metal. Now as it's leveling these frets, it's in order to level them, or in the process of leveling them, it's flattening out the curve on the tops of the frets a little bit, and that means that the next stage of the process is where we're going to have to just reshape those so we don't end up with flat spots. It won't make the guitar play very well, and it will also upset the intonation as well if we leave it with flat spots on it. Now I can still see, even though it's not doing, it's cutting along here fine, but not a huge amount, but it is still cutting on these. Actually these 4 or 5 frets here have got quite a bit of material that needs to come off to make them level with everything else. A little bit more down here. I can see these are some low frets here, so it's there's an interesting principle about all of this, is that it's relative, there's no absolute. So when we say high fret, it doesn't mean it's high relative to the surface of the earth or anything. It means relative to the frets either side of it, this one is effectively high. And of course a low fret in a sequence of frets can make the frets either side of it effectively high. So a low fret just makes the surrounding frets high. And basically your low frets on your neck dictate what you do with the fret leveling. So if somebody's really hammered in one fret out of 21, you may find that you either have to replace that fret or you have to work your way down all the other good frets to that one. Now I'm seeing this one now has just got a little bit more curvature on it now as we come over to the bass side, and I'm just going to use the truss rod to put a tiny bit of curvature, extra curvature into this thing. It's so sensitive that you can barely see how much I turned it, and I'm still seeing a little bit more needed. So I'm basically just holding one end and turning the smallest amount I can do while still turning it, and sometimes that jumps too far. I think that's still gap. I'm going to turn a little bit more, and then before I know it I'll have gone past that point and it will be bouncing off the middle one, which is now where we've got to. It's hitting the middle first and bouncing secondarily onto the end one. So it's a good indicator, and it's a particular feel that it's quite hard to describe, but once you've done it a few times you'll know it. It's a kind of ka-dunk as it lands in the middle first and then sort of bangs forward for the second landing. Okay, so here we go again into the D slot, or D track, and I can hold it in place, steer it along the basic path of the D string, which is in the middle of these two, but obviously I also want to just smooth it out, so I want to make sure I do the whole of the gap. But I am thinking about the central point where the D string runs, because that's the important bit to make this play. So again, still pretty much working under gravity. I'm not really adding too much downward force. You can do, when you get familiar with this, you can start to sort of put pressure a little bit in certain places to get things done quicker. But it isn't necessary, and it's only good to do that if you're very familiar or comfortable with the way it works. Pretty good. Pretty good actually. Sometimes when I get to very close, now what am I doing? I just did the D, didn't I? Yeah, sometimes when I get to very near where I think is the right amount of level, I stop just before it's totally clean, because I know that the next, or after the next process, we're going to just reshape those flattened tops, which involves a little bit of work with a specialist tool. But after that, then I'm going to do a fair bit of sanding to take those scratched frets and turn them into nice smooth things. So just about spot on. And I know that in that process, the process of sanding is going to take down those fret tops just a fraction more. So if I'm almost there, I've got to the point now I can probably just about judge the thousandths of a micron that are going to come off when I do the final polishing. So I can kind of stop just before all the notes play perfectly cleanly, and then let the polishing take the last tiny bit off. Now this is cutting up very nicely on all of the frets pretty much simultaneously, which tells me that they're all now level, quickly level, and it also means the tool mapped the shape very well. Do a tiny bit more. There's a little bit of zinging going on in there, but this is a nice low action, so you know it's pretty impressive to get it to play cleanly at this action. It's quite adventurous or ambitious, I sometimes would say. and then I'm going to use the same adjustment or same curvature setting for the final slot, which is the low E. And again, just going to let the gravity do its wonderful work. I'm going right to the edge as well. So it looks pretty good to me, actually. Looks like we're going to get a nice final outcome here. It's looking very good. Everything's cutting evenly. It's nicer to see that than it is to see spots of dark troughs where basically you're going to struggle to get down into those troughs, and you have to end up taking it some way and then making a judgment call and perhaps stopping, raising the playing action, which is not defeated as such, but it's, you know, it's what we're trying to not do. That defeats the object a little bit. But there are times where the judgment call has to be that that's all you can do, because it may be that the 2 or 3 frets are so much lower than the adjacent other frets that you don't have a choice. And sometimes it may be that maybe a fret is seriously damaged, and in which case you may find that you have to, it may just make sense to remove that and replace that one fret. Otherwise you're taking all of the whole rack of perfectly good frets and taking years off their lives in order to kind of bring it down to the lowest common denominator. Okay, so now having set this, we can now take off all of these strings. I'm going to store these possibly for reuse another time because they're good sacrificial strings. But now we can take these off, and then I will go through off camera. I'll go through a process of masking off all the fingerboard and the tops of the guitar, ready for the next 2 stages of the fret leveling, which is to reprofile the shape of each one of these frets to make sure it's nice and smooth, and then the sanding process, which will mean I'll cover up all the pickups and everything as well and make sure the body's protected so that the fingerboard, body and pickups are protected. And then once that's done, the harder part of the job is done, because then we can put the strings, new strings back on, load the guitar up, and it goes back into its setup position really, where it's pretty much all there. And then the final job will be a few tweaks and the intonation, making sure each string is the exact right length for this particular neck. And once we've done that, that's the job done. But you know, so on this, some of the time that you haven't seen is obviously doing the setting up the tremolo vibrato unit. But as I undo these strings, that unit is going to sink backwards flat to the body of the guitar, which isn't a problem at all. The springs will just pull it nice and flat. And okay, so this is nothing really going to be very interesting here. So I'm going to shut this off, take a little break, and I'm going to also check these, tightening the adjustments of these tuners, because they are a little bit inconsistent. Some of them are stiffer than others. They are budget ones, but you'll see from one of the good things you'll also see about setting this guitar up is not only will you see a tremolo or a vibrato system work without detuning the guitar, which might be a pleasant first, or might defy some of the conventional wisdom, I suppose, but also you'll also get to see that these budget tuners are in fact perfectly capable of doing their job and holding the guitar in tune, so they won't have any deleterious effect on the tuning. So maybe a couple of myths sort of busted at that point, I think. You know, and a lot of people just you'll see people selling guitars and they'll go, oh, you know, tremolo units are rubbish. We'll always block them off because they, you know, there isn't a single one that will work and keep your tuning intact. Well, it's not true. So, okay, see you in a minute when it's all ready to do the reprofiling. Okay, so we have the neck masked off. Oh, I'll turn this off so it doesn't, sorry, noise. neck masked off, part of the body masked off, and I'm now going to use the Stumac fret crowning tool on this medium setting. And basically the idea is to just run over the top of the frets and shave off the sharp edges of the flat spots and to do so whilst not reducing the height of the fret anymore. And the way I know that I haven't reduced the height of the fret any further is by leaving a little thin strip of black marker down the middle, and that's what that coating of marker pen is all for. So it's a very handy little guide. So I learned that on YouTube sometime, seems like years ago now. Anyway, so because we didn't have to do very much levelling on these, they don't take hardly any effort to reprofile, just a little bit of pressure, a little bit of force to level out or round off certain bits on certain frets, but not a lot. So very nearly finished, and then the next stage will be to select a load of different grades of sandpaper and then to polish all these frets out to a nice shiny finish. Okay, so pretty much that was it. That's simple. So put this off to one side and now sort out the different grades of paper. Now I've been trying to get into a habit, I don't know how well I've succeeded, of annotating what things are so that I can find the grades of grit that I need, and I'm not sure how successful I've been with it, to be honest. Oh, I got some 1200 there, so I know what I need. I need 2 bits of 600, there you go. I need 2 bits of 800, oh, there's a long bit, 2 bits of 12, oh, there's an 8, so 2 bits of 8. This is not a bad idea, marking these things up. So 6, 8, 1000 in the green. There you go, tear that in half. 1000 in the green, 1200. Look at that, effortless, having written on these bits what they are. Now, not a lot of the rest of it has got the correct grades written, but I will in future write it on there, make sure I know what's what. So for this polishing sequence, I'm going to go through the sequence of papers and then go to the micromesh set, and these are superbly useful papers. They're cloths really, and they go from 1500 through to 12,000, which is a really just practically polishing. So through all of these grades, then onto the micromeshes, and then we're done. Once that's done, a case of string it up, balance out the load up the thing. This is, what's that on there? Some black stuff, that's weird. Load up the new strings, tune it up to pitch, stretch out the strings, and we're a bit of intonation, and then we're done. Okay, so I won't put you through all of this because it gets noisy. But basically, I'm going to start the first 2 bits. I'm going to use my fingers like that, just to make sure that I'm going over the frets in a kind of up and down way, and then I'll move on to using the foam block a little bit later once I've done the first 2 of these, and it'll take about 15 to 20 minutes to do all of this, and it produces quite a lot of dust, so it gets a bit noisy and a bit dusty, but it's well worth it. And once I've done through all of this sequence, these frets will be shiny and ready to play. So the secret of doing this is really making sure you don't spend too much time in any one spot. You've got to constantly be thinking about giving the frets all an equal amount of treatment or an equal amount of attention. And the bits of paper don't last long. So I'll switch this off and I'll see you back in a moment when all the paper's off. I'll have given it a quick dust down and we'll restring. Alright, so all the tape taken off, guitar cleaned up, dusted down, and we're now ready to put the strings on, new strings on. And before I do that, I'm just going to get a bit of whatchamacallit. Am I going to use this one? Is that the one I'm going to use? No. I'm going to put a bit of oil, lemon oil, onto the fingerboard to sort of liven it up a bit. So this is now frets levelled, the frets reshaped, and then the frets polished out, and a bit of oil to kind of darken the fingerboard. I always go to use the word hydrate, but of course it's not hydrating it. And I'm just going to pick off the excess with a towel. I don't want too much oil on there, just enough. Okay, so here's the fun bit now. I'm going to load up the strings onto the tuners, and this is where time and some effort to get rid of all the slack in your strings really pays off. So I put the string all the way through, grab it here, and then pull it back a fret's worth, and then start turning it, holding on to this bit, and I guide this held part over the loose string to begin with, let it go round, and as it comes round I pull up the loose string, and keeping it under pressure I push the held string underneath this time. So we've got one bit that goes over and one bit that sort of goes under. In fact it doesn't quite get all the way around there because I didn't pull that much through, but if you go just over a fret's worth you get to just go one over and one under. So I'm just going to put them all on first, and then I'm going to spend a lot of time getting rid of all the stretch, and it's critical to do that to make sure that you're to make the tremolo work, amongst other things, but to make sure the thing stays in tune when you play it. And so remember I think earlier on I said that culprits for not staying in tune are first and foremost the slack left in your strings, and then the second culprit is the sticky nut slots. So having cut all of those to the correct height, it means we've also widened them out enough for these strings, so we should have cured the gripping, any sort of sticking problems. So that means that by the time we stretch these strings out, we should have taken care of the two main culprits, and then this will stay in tune regardless of the cheapness of the tuners, and also regardless of this floating tremolo, which legend would have you believe makes it impossible to tune a guitar, keep a guitar in tune, but we'll see that that's not the case. Yay. Okay, that's good. We're on target now for having these ready for Les on Friday, one tonight, another one tomorrow, and then one on Thursday. I'll do the acoustic tomorrow. I'll have a set of new strings coming for that. And Les, I'm going to put elixirs on that because it's such a nice little guitar, but I'll just, obviously I think it should be alright budget wise. We shouldn't, if we don't have to do fret levelling on the Pacifica, the other Pacifica, then we should be okay. Okay, so last one. Now, just for your information, Les, the scratch plate and the plastics, I think just the scratch plate actually on this guitar, has its original plastic sheet on it, so I would personally want to take that off because it gets grubby after a while and it eventually frays and doesn't look very good. So you've got some bits sticking up around your pickups down here anyway. So I would be, you know, you've got your new car, take the plastic off the seats sort of thing. And but I haven't done it because I think it's for everybody to do their own. But just to let you know, that's what's on there. And you've probably got the same on the, I haven't had a close look, but I imagine you'll have the same on the other Pacifica. I'm just cutting these back short as I can with these big pliers. Oops, that was a bit clumsy. I went and dented the string there, but it'll be alright. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the slack out of the strings. So whenever you change your guitar strings, I recommend you do the following procedure and do it a lot and spend a long time doing it. So you grab each string and you just go between thumb and forefinger and push. You push your thumbs that way and your fingers this way, the opposite way, and that allows you to put this bit of string that you're holding under quite a lot of pressure to really stretch out any slack that's in it. Go all the way down and then switch to the next string and come all the way back. And basically we'll need to do this, and then by the way concentrate a bit on what's left over on the other side of the nut. You need to do this 3, 4, possibly even 5 times to stop all the slack coming out, because when the slack comes out, it comes out in the form of your guitar going out of tune. But it won't come out unless you force it to come out. Now either by doing this, or the other kind of forcing is when you're playing the guitar and you might bend a note or something and then it goes, it stretches a piece of slack that's in the string and your string goes out of tune. Or if you're not bending a note, it would be when you're hitting the tremolo, and that also pulls the thing. Okay, so having stretched it once, I'm now going to get a note and tune it. This is a bit tricky. Let me just do something. I'm going to use this guitar here as a reference point, if I can. It's a bit old and horrible, but when you're tuning with a floating tremolo, it's better to use all the strings. Okay. So I'm just going to put them all under pressure to begin with, and what it'll find is it'll bring up the bridge, start lifting the bridge off the body of the guitar, and that'll pull it up under tension, and then we need to find the notes. Now that won't be stable or in tune yet, okay, because it's yet to balance out all the notes. With a floating tremolo, you have to keep on tuning with a reference instrument or a tuner until it stabilizes and balances out. But meantime, we're also stretching in between tunings to get rid of the slack. So. Some people think there's a big mystery to how you do it, and there isn't really any. You just keep on tuning up until it stabilizes, and you'll find that the amount that it goes out each time reduces until eventually it stabilizes, and that will be when this is floating in equilibrium. So we're getting starting to float, but we haven't yet got all the slack out. So we just keep on with this stretching process. It can be a bit confusing stretching out the slack and balancing up a floating tremolo at the same time. Normally, just taking out all the slack is an interesting process because you hear how much you've detuned it each time you stretch it. Here we've got the detuning going on with the stretching out, wringing out the slack, as well as the tremolo plate equalizing as well, which is also going to completely upset, or not upset, but unbalance the tuning until it's reached its equilibrium point. Imagine we felt that we'd taken all the slack out of this now, which we probably haven't, but let's imagine we have. Then the way to equalise this tremolo is to go back to the E and go up again. And again. So we're now approaching equilibrium. I'm just stretching out the as much of the last bits of stretch slack as I can. Again, also at the same time as balancing the tremolo, which is sort of double thing, two things going on at once there, but that's what you have to do when you put on new strings and you're setting the tremolo. But it shouldn't be that much more slack after this. We're kind of getting there. Now I'll just go back to tuning according to the other guitar again. You can hear it's gone again. So it's still going, it's still moving around relative because it's floating, and it will eventually just stabilise, and the amount it goes out of tune each time you tune each six won't change anymore. You just have to have the patience to keep on going until you reach that equilibrium. That's why having another guitar is very handy. tremolo floating, as you can see. So it's gone back to where it was, and we can plug this in. Now this, if there is some slack still left in these strings, this the next part of playing this will help to stretch it out. We might expect it right now to still be out of tune a little bit by the time we've pulled this a few times. How about that? So there we have it. Yamaha Pacifica with perfectly set floating tremolo, and the only thing that remains to do now is to pull the amp up here, get the tuner app out on the tuner, find it, and then we'll just do the intonation part. And I'll point that so you can see the tuner working, and I'll get the strap. So the point about the intonation is we can set each string to be the exact correct length for the neck on this guitar, and strangely, although there's a nominal scale length for this guitar of whatever it is, I can't remember now, 648mm, let's say, each string is actually slightly different from that. No two are exactly the same, so, and that's the way it should be, because they're made of different materials and they're different thicknesses. So now again, if I've got a little bit of tuning to do, I'll do it from here. Actually, I can do it on the thing. E. Oh, come on, I want an A. Give me an E. That's pinging in the nut. So I'm going to, see, that is a source of tuning problems right there. So the nut needs a little bit of sandpaper in it. I'll do that in a minute. These tuners. For this, I don't need the tremolo arm in the way, and intonating with a tremolo, floating tremolo, means I've got to be a little bit careful, because I mustn't be hitting this when I'm doing my checking. So the first thing we do is we'll ping the harmonic, and we'll tune the guitar to the harmonic of each string, or the 12th fret harmonic. So I don't know if you've done that before, but it's like you just touch the string over the 12th fret and just hit the string with the pick, so you're not actually fretting it on between the metal frets. You're holding a finger lightly on the string over the 12th fret and then pinging it, and it rings out like that, and then we can just tune it to exactly a E on the tuner. And then if this string is the right length for the neck, the fretted note on the 12th fret between those two metal frets, the 11th and the 12th, will be the same note, roughly pretty much the same note, and that's spot on. I'll tune the A. Thanks, Crow. And that's pretty good too. Shut up! That's slightly flat, but hardly any. I have to go and sort him out. Slightly flat too, you might come back to that one. Yeah. these three I'd say just ever so slightly flat. So what I'm going to do, if they're flat, it means the playing length of the string is just a tiny bit too long. So we want to shorten that, and the way we shorten that is to push the saddles closer to the nut. And to do that, we're going to have to go in with a screwdriver to the back and go counterclockwise. I think I never get this right. Sometimes I do. I'm going to push it a little bit counterclockwise. Yep, that shortens it, pushes it, and sometimes you have to push with the screwdriver too to make it go. And I'm just going to push them all forward a little tiny bit together because I know they're all a tiny fraction too long. So having done that, they'll be slightly detuned. So I'll tune them again, roughly to their pitch. Okay, that needs sandpaper in there too. You can hear it pinging. Okay, now I'm going to ping the harmonic and tune. And try the 12th note. There you go. Okay. Pretty much spot on. So there's still some stretch in there, so I made it go flat. Sorry, I don't remember where the notes are. Of course you have to have a bit of a reverb for that. A little bit of sandpaper and then we're done. Get that all out of the way. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Down, 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 down. Do, 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 do. Now, so what I'll do is just I'll find myself some 600 or anything will do really, but 600 is probably just about abrasive enough or scratchy enough, if you know what I mean. But of course, I can't find the right size, bit of 600 when I need it. There's 1200, there's 800. Okay, 8 will do. I'll just break off. Oh, there's 600, that's a whole sheet. Okay, let's take, there we have it, 600. Ready for the task. Okay, so I've got a bit of pinging. I can, oh, actually, you know what? It's not in the nut slots, it's on this thing here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put something I've not done before. I'm going to put a little blob of grease behind there, and I've kept some from a grease gun, especially for this purpose. Bloop. I don't know what I'll attach it with, I'll put it on with, but might as well just give this a little bit of lubrication. Try and get it under there. It won't hurt if it's sort of gunged up under there because you'll never see it, but yeah, I blobbed some on the damn fingerboard now, thingy. Okay, so a little bit of oil, grease in there. Hopefully, yeah, stop the little creaking noise now. So it wasn't in the as I thought. It wasn't in the nut slots. It was actually in the that little thing, string tree. So it's now no longer creaking. So Alright, there we go. So there's number one complete. I've got to just put the truss rod cover back on, and truss rod cover back on, and the cover on the back. I'll probably do some more stretching, maybe play it a little bit later tonight indoors, just to get as much of the last bit of stretch out, so that when you get it, it's tuned and stable and ready to go. But it's, you could hear it sounds lovely. Like I say, I'm half expecting some. Come around all the way. Yeah, if you're gonna use a tremolo arm, it's probably better to keep it stiff, so that it's a bit clumsy in that it's nice when it swings out of the way, but if it swings you end up with a bit of a rattle from side to side. If you have it in that sort of stiff position here, you can still push it out of the way if you want, but it's solid. If you go back out one, there's just a little bit of movement, but either way. Okay, lovely. Jobby done on this one. Hope that was interesting. Beautifully done. Plays lovely, feels lovely. I adjusted the pickups down a little bit too. They were too close to the strings. I mean, practically touching. So everything's nice. Playing nice. Oh, what I will do is I'll put a little bit of graphite powder underneath the slots as well, just as I'm putting the final cover back on. This is a little extra thing you can do. If you cut the slots right, it isn't strictly necessary, but I'm going to move one at a time actually. Just get a little bit of graphite powder, knock it into there, put the string back in. So rather than sort of detune it, I'm just pulling the string out of the way. Not quite often on a non-tremolo I detune it to move the strings easier, but this one, because the tremolo is already set, it's better to keep it under its tension so that the tremolo doesn't go off and do weird and wonderful things. So you can just push them a little bit out of the way, load up your blade with whatever it is, your sharp thing with dust, and it doesn't matter if loads goes in, because you can get your air thing and blow the excess away. Okay, so there we have it. Let's put the truss rod cover back on. There it is. It's got one little dark screw that goes with it, very convenient. So I'm very happy with that, Les. It's come out pretty well. I think you'll enjoy it. I have a feeling, I'll get it the right way around, Samuel. I have a feeling that it won't feel quite as low as the Squire that you've borrowed from me, only because the action will be as low, but that Squire, the frets have worn down on that Squire, so that adds to the... What the hell happened there? Yeah, the worn down frets adds to that, the overall feel of how low it is. Oh Lord have mercy. Now, it's very difficult to... This is not a very good and not a very magnetic thing, so getting that screw in there is a bit of a pain. Yeah, so the Squire you've got is extremely, well, I wouldn't say worn exactly, but the frets they're reaching near the end of their lives wear-wise, and as a result the whole thing feels very, very fast and flat. But the action is pretty much the same actually. Okay, so got my pickguard screws. This hasn't got, don't think this has got plastic on it, but your pickguard has on the front. So just putting this back on. when you come to change your strings, I would recommend you take this plate off to change the strings. You can do it without taking off, but actually I find it easier to see what you're doing, and it will save you time. If you try and do it by poking it through the plastic and then through into the bridge, holes in the bridge, it's a false economy. You potentially will end up wasting or spending more time doing it than if you just took it off, and then you can easily guide the strings through. In a personal experience, I'd recommend that, but there you go. Okay, so one down, two to go. Looking forward to the Fender Malibu tomorrow. I've got some new Elixir strings coming for that, and I'm so looking forward to making that play low and fast like my acoustics, because it's a beautiful little guitar you've got there. So it's going to be a real thrill to make it come to life with new strings and a real fast, low action. Okay, hope you enjoyed that, Les. I'll see you for the next one, and thanks everyone else for watching. Appreciate your support as always, and I'll speak to you soon.